Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear us?
All right, I'm working on getting to where you can see me. Just give me a minute.
Can you hear us today?
A little better, but not great. Yeah, I have talked to the chair of the department about this issue. I don't know what good it'll do, but I've expressed my concern.
You got a new speaker better than the ladder.
Somebody else.
Your speaker's mine.
Talk to me a little more.
How about now?
Yeah, you're a little gravelly, but I can hear you better.
Sounds like somebody's turned it up.
How come you wasn't in class last night?
I do apologize. That was completely my fault. I was under the impression that it was in Dickinson. I forgot that it was IVN class. So by the time I realized I had to get across campus, it took me 10 minutes, and some of you had already gone home. I did show up. We did have class. I was just like 15, 20 minutes late because I had to come all the way across campus. I forgot that it was IVN class. And that's completely 100% my fault. I do apologize. You can catch the notes from off of if you go on to Blackboard and go into week 1, I've got the PowerPoint there, and also Miss Farah? She was in that class. What's that young lady's last name? I think it's Farah, isn't it?
Yes.
She's in that class, and she can help you with any notes that you might have missed. She takes really good notes.
Okay.
But again, I do apologize. That was 110% my fault.
You want week 2 and week 1 and week 2 discussion questions for that class answered by Saturday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Since we missed.
Yeah, since we missed.
Okay.
Okay. How are you?
I'm great now.
Okay.
I had a massive meltdown last night. I'm getting
A meltdown?
Oh, I knew that was
a whole
coming.
lot going on.
I knew that was coming.
My daughter's not making the great choices. She's 20. Legally, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah. You know, and sometimes you have to have, sometimes you have to give tough love.
I did.
Sometimes you have to say, you know what? This is all you. Good luck.
Had more than that.
She set off financially.
Well, now there again, that's tough love.
Yeah.
Darn.
Tough love. If you're going to act that way, good luck.
It's made
What'd you
me
think about our class last night? Did y'all like it?
It's good.
Yes.
Involved.
Yeah, and that's what I want. That's what I like.
Yeah, I don't know. I fall asleep.
Is it? One of the things that I can tell about you is that class is challenging perceptions that you have about police organizations and the perceived things that's going on. I mean, I kind of get that.
I know how they work, and I know what goes on in them. Not to the high extent of someone who's been in it, but I do know there are some problems that in anything that I've been in, it has problems. And it's everywhere.
Sure.
That's like pretty much that class last night. I took it with what you were talking about, and I can relate it to the fact I work in retail right now.
Absolutely. You can put it anywhere. It doesn't have to be in criminal justice. You can put that anywhere.
I had a manager tell me one night that he could replace me. I was nothing more than a number. I said, unlock the door, I'm leaving. He said, you quit? And I said, no, apparently you're firing me because I'm just a number. I don't let anybody talk that to me.
But the key is if you're going to be a good leader, you don't talk to people that way. I mean, you don't do it.
That manager is now gone.
Right.
He didn't last very long.
Typically, they don't last long.
Yeah. Well, he was doing some extracurricular things.
So the 3 cases we're going to be talking about today is Russo, Martinez, and Isom, right? Huh?
Town of Isom, Rhode Island, Town. Is it the 1997 case?
Should have been, yeah, I think so.
Oh, no.
I wrote
Yeah, they're,
Yeah. Hyson versus Town of Warren, Rhode Island.
Well, that's why I didn't find it.
yeah, I'll say, brother, there ain't much
I can't believe this.
in Ohio.
I forgot to do it.
All right, just get it
I
turned in.
got
I
the
will.
first two, I didn't find the other one, cause I was looking for Warren,
Like I said,
Ohio.
it's been a bad week.
No, I did say Rhode Island, didn't I? Did I not
Yeah,
say Rhode
you
Island?
said Rhode Island.
Okay.
I must've just heard Ohio.
It's all right. I do that kind of stuff all the time. I was watching the flies. It happens.
Ison versus Town of Warner.
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, you were mixing up Cincinnati, I know what it was.
Turn the lights off, it's a little easier to see.
Those of you in Beckley at the end of class, please give your assignments, those last three cases, to Miss Adams, and she will email them to me. I'm gonna try to get everything graded this weekend, get it all back to you on Monday so that I can stay current, we can keep moving on. How you
She's
doing,
not gonna email them for us no more, they've got a computer set up there for us to do it.
Great. However you gotta do it, works good for me.
So what do we have to do?
Email him your assignments.
That's the Xerox, that I got last week from you all, right? Or the last class. It just says Xerox on it.
That's hard to tell, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, because those are the emails that just say Xerox. Please make sure you got your name on those, because the email, when it comes in, does not come from an account.
Just a little summary of how the force was used, what the road was.
I got 3 cases you'll need to try to make up this weekend. Actually, you've got more than 3. You've got, we did 3 Tuesday and 3 for Thursday. I'll tell those to you whenever you get settled in there. Just gonna work on them over the weekend. Basically, what I want is just a real quick synopsis, a snapshot of what happened. What is the question of law? What happened? And what was the outcome? What did the judges say? That's it. Nothing, it didn't have to be anything huge, right?
Looks like Dennis was just like,
Do what now?
Shrewsbury.
you going to?
Was it okay?
It's gonna be some long nights.
I did a lot of substance abuse work when I got into corrections and did my part in corrections. I did a lot of substance abuse work. And I like the study of it. But now I was trained, a whole lot differently. Again, my training comes from a whole lot different place than most. My training in substance abuse is that substance abuse is a chronic reoccurring brain disease. And that's how you treat it. And there's a lot of argument with that theory. But that's the theory that I was under, and that's the theory that I kind of fly into. It's a chronic recurring brain disease.
Stay slow, the cops got me.
I'm not gonna need to show up, I'm not.
Yeah.
All right. Let me go down the roll real quick. We'll roll on. Akers.
Here.
Oh, wait a minute.
There you go.
Okay. Akers is here. Austin.
Here.
Your heirs? All right. Burton. She's here. Childress.
Childers is probably on this way.
Okay. Crane.
Here.
Dillon's here. Dillon.
Here.
Doss.
Here.
Gibson. Gibson.
I think Charles was sick.
Hall. Hall. Lee. Lee. Mace.
Here,
No.
Yes.
here,
Here.
Michelle No is there?
Oh,
no.
Or, I'm sorry, Brianna No. Primer? Yeah, that was confusing. Her name is Brianna No, N-O-E, so after your name, when I say no, that means I will acknowledge you from now on. Well played, y'all, well played. Primer,
I'm here.
Reedy, he ain't coming, you said, right?
No, he's not doing well.
Rahman,
Here.
I don't understand.
Ridley,
Here's the first.
where's she at? Oh, there you are. You said it's so soft. Ms. Ridley's here. I know where Mr. Shack is. Smith? I gotta remember that. Weiss? I've said that about 14 times, Anna. Weiss, right? If you'll bear with me, I promise I'll get it right. I don't mean any disrespect. I will get it right. Mr. Wickline? And Williams, right? All right, that's good. All right, let's start off today by talking about those last three cases. Let's start with, I would like somebody to tell me about Russo versus Cincinnati. Russo versus Cincinnati. Somebody, anybody. Don't be afraid to jump right out there.
Well, police were called out to a home where a mentally disturbed man had barricaded himself in, had weapons.
All right, hold on just a minute. Now we've added a whole degree of difficulty in here. What is the degree of difficulty we're adding in?
Mentally unstable.
Good. He's mentally ill. You got a mentally ill subject who's barricaded himself in his house, and you said he had weapons, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so he's got weapons.
And he was suicidal?
All right, go ahead. Keep going.
Claimed to be suicidal. Police tried to get him out. He wouldn't come. They forced entry into the place, tased him a couple times to no avail. Ended up shooting him, tasing him again, shooting him some more. Kind of got carried away. He had 20-some bullet holes in him.
Okay. What
Take
was
him
the
to the
question of
hospital and
law?
died.
What was the question of law?
Whether they should have forced entry into the house, for one, whether excessive force was used, two, whether SWAT should have been called out.
Wow, okay, so I like all of those. One, you have a suicidal person in their house, there's nobody else in there, they pose no danger to anybody but themselves. Did the police have a right to force their way into that house? That's a good question. Two, is 23 bullet holes enough is that enough shots to kill somebody, right? Seems a little over the top.
Well, if you can't get enough to charge you, no.
I don't know many people that can get up and charge after 23 bullets. You gotta be a bad dude. I mean, you gotta be really bad to be able to do that. Yeah. So, all right, so we've decided that the questions of law are absolutely legitimate. Should you bust in? Should they have called out a soldier in the unit, like SWAT?
No.
And and was excessive force used as 23 bullet holes in one suspect overkill? All right, so what did the court tell us?
Well, from my reading of it, SWAT should have been called out, but when communication was cut off, the lights was cut out, they feared at that time he was in danger of hurting himself. So that's why they entered extreme circumstances, which the court ruled was okay. They said that, the use of force was okay because they had tried non-lethal force. It wasn't effective. He was still coming at him with a weapon. So they ruled use of force, everything the cops done was okay.
All right. So the lesson that we take from this case is that we as police officers are obligated to protect people from themselves. And we can use as much force as is necessary to try to protect people from themselves. However, this really needed to have a better outcome. When you're dealing with a mentally ill suspect, one who claims to be suicidal, you need to bring in those folks and you need to have them notified who are capable, aware, and ready to deal with these types of subjects. Death is not the outcome we want for mentally ill people that we have to confront. It's not what we want to have happen. So there were several mistakes made from a logistical standpoint on the police end, but none of them leads to criminal charges, right? ultimately what they lead to is the death of the person they're trying to protect. So from a mission standpoint, they absolutely failed. From a legal standpoint, they were within inside the realm of legality to take the actions that they took. Make sense?
Yes.
But from a mission standpoint, they absolutely failed. Because we have a standing order to protect people from themselves. All right. Case number 2. Thank you, by the way, Beckley, for speaking up. Case number 2, Martinez versus New Mexico Department of Public Safety. Somebody else.
The family of the woman is suing the department, hold on, okay, it's the Department of, right?
Public Safety. Martinez versus the New Mexico Department of Public Safety.
There's two different ones. There,
Yeah, what's
the
the
Department of
difference?
Transportation, Traffic,
Yeah.
Department of Safety was,
Department of Transportation.
I'll have to look at
That's all right. I get you've got plenty of opportunity to correct it. It's all right. Y'all got an opportunity to correct it. Fix it and just get it to me. But I want you to, the one I want you to look at is the one about the Department of Public Safety. Tell me about it.
so Trooper Boyd pulls over a car for speeding, find a woman with a warrant on her driving the car.
All right, so trooper pulls this lady over for speeding. Remember, a civil penalty. When he pulls her over, he runs her and finds out she has an unrelated warrant. All right?
So he asked her to step out of the car. She was verbally resistant, but she did come out of the car eventually.
Right?
And then he put her in cuffs, arrested her. She was still verbally resisting, asking for his ID, and he wouldn't show it to her because his ID was in the car, he says, and he didn't want to leave her. So he's trying to put her in the car, she's still resisting, so he maces her while she is in handcuffs, from the way I read it,
Okay, that's right.
and then gets her in the car.
Right. What's the question of law? So, for those of you who are in Beckley, female is verbally abusive, verbally resistant, but she does comply.
We could hear him.
Huh?
We could hear him.
Okay, y'all can hear him good. So, he handcuffs her. She's insisting on seeing the ID, and in order to get her into the back of the car when she begins to physically resist, he sprays her with pepper spray.
She didn't physically resist.
If she doesn't go into the back of the car and he had to spray her, she was physically resisting. I
Well,
promise.
in the court documents, it says plainly she never physically resisted.
Really?
That just only verbally. Yes.
Well, then he didn't have a opportunity to spray her. All he needed to do was put her in the back of the car. Because let me tell y'all something, just on a sidebar, and tell y'all a little story. And I know y'all like these stories. I arrested a drunk 22-year-old female once upon a time, and I put her in handcuffs, and we were about 15 steps from my car. From the place that I put her in handcuffs to the place that I got her to the back door of the back seat of my cruiser, she wore me out. She stomped on every toe I had. She kicked my shins. She kneed me in the groin. She was fighting me every step, and it hurt. She knew what she was doing. And when I got her to the car and opened up the back door, her with her hands cuffed behind her back, I couldn't get her in the back seat. With all my training and all the stuff I knew, every maneuver that I used on her to put her in the back seat, she had a counter move for, and I could not physically get her in the back seat. I had to get help to get her in the back seat. So now I know that seems silly, but trust me, from somebody who's been there and done that, if somebody don't want to go in that back seat and they're pretty agile, they ain't going. You can't make them by yourself. It's tough. Your question?
With one of these techniques, like the twisting of a joint manipulation technique.
Right.
I know you have, I'm sure, and I've seen giant meat taken down. What would be wrong with doing that and forcing her to see?
I tried every pain compliance technique that I knew. I tried all of the techniques that I'd been talked about putting people in a car that they could. And what happened was there were three variables about her that caused her to be able to resist all of my efforts, my best trained efforts. One is she was high on dope. I don't know exactly if it was Oxycontin or if it was Lortab or if it was a mixture of something else, but she was very high when I arrested her. So therefore, no matter what I did, it didn't hurt. The second was, she was a thin, I want to be careful how I say this. She wasn't skinny and she wasn't thin, but she was very agile. Does that make sense? She was a moderate, she was about 5'5", 5'4". She was not heavy, and she was very,
Limber.
yeah, she was limber, or she was very,
Very strange way.
she could really, I mean, you would put these pain compliance techniques on her, and I would there's a sweeping move that you can move to bend people over at a 45-degree angle and then just shove them right in the car. I could do that, and before I could get her shoved into the car, she could be standing straight back up facing me. I mean, she could spin her, and she was just very talented being high like she was. I couldn't get her in the car. And she was very good at fighting, and every time she turned around, she stomped my toes till they were blue. She was killing me. And she wouldn't just turn around and step on them. She'd take her heel and grind them, you know? And so getting her in the backseat of the car, I had to call for some backup. Now, could I have put her in the backseat of the car using more force and maybe hurt her?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm sure.
If I'd have been alone and there was nobody anywhere close, would that have worked? I probably could have got by with it, but it wasn't necessary. I held her there in the 45-degree angle of the back seat in the car door. I held her and I backed up to get my feet some relief so she couldn't step on them anymore. I called for some backup. I had another unit come in, and together we put her in the back of the car.
That's what it's done.
You know, she was very combative. At no time did we do anything other than use pain compliance to get her in the back seat of the car. So what is the question of law here? And I already know what the question of law here is, but I want you to tell the class.
Did he use excessive force using the mace on her?
Did he use excessive force by pepper spraying her? Now, here's the element that I want you all to consider.
Mr. Resnick,
Yes.
before you go any further, I have a question.
All right.
First this, okay, you know, I'm a little older than a lot of the people here. You know, there was a time when they had PSAs on TV about when you get pulled over to ask the cop for identification because there was so much going on, people impersonating police officers.
Absolutely.
You know, I don't see where this woman was in the wrong in any way asking for identification. You know, there was no reason for him not to give identification.
What has to happen at that point is that there was mistakes made on both sides, and I'll agree with you. She was perfectly within her right to ask for that, but there was mistakes made on both sides. What should have happened in that scenario, and I've had them ask for my ID before too. I'm in a marked car, I'm wearing a uniform, the blue lights are on, the siren just got turned off, and you're asking me for my ID? Really? But here's the story. You can't say that to them. You can't say, are you kidding? ID? Car? Lights? Uniform? Badge? What's going on? You can't do that, right?
Yeah.
You can't tell them this is a comedy show. We're on TV. I mean, you can't. You have to address their concern seriously. But what you have to tell them is, and it takes a little extra time to do this with this communication thing, and I talk about it all the time. You have to tell them, ma'am, I'm happy to show you my ID. I'm happy to comply with your request and verify to make sure I am who I say I am and who you think I am. But at this point, we're at the side of the road. You're in handcuffs, and we're both in danger. I need you to come back here with me to the car. Let's get on the passenger side of the vehicle. Let me put you in a safe place, and I'm happy to show you my ID before I put you in the car. Something like that has to happen. She doesn't get to control your pullover. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, and she didn't. She actually went back to his car, and he still refused to show it.
And at that point, he could have resolved his whole issue by showing her the ID. Is it silly? Absolutely. Is it necessary? Absolutely.
So honestly, at that point, any force he used was excessive.
Well, we'll be interested to see what the court says and what the court finds. But I would say that regardless of what the court finds, he was trained old school. You do what I say when I say, and I don't have to verify myself to you. I don't have to do any of that kind of stuff. And I can tell you that was kind of his training, and that's kind of what he did. And those types of tactics like you're talking about and with us are outdated and they don't work anymore.
So they pretty much both of them was in the wrong.
Absolutely. I would think, but according to him, what he's telling me is as she walked back to the car with him and she's like, all right, show me the ID before I get in the car. Show me the ID, show me the ID. And he refuses to show the ID. It's real simple. If you're making an arrest and a suspect asks something simple of you like that, even though it's trivial and it may just irritate the crap out of you, comply and make it go away. All right, here's my ID. Get in the car. Let's roll. If we don't what? Again, a good faith mistake by the police will not be necessarily something that they're going to be punished for. What the Supreme, and I don't know what the answer is to this court case. I'm leaving it up to you all to tell me, but I can tell you in a lot of cases, especially right now, we have 5 conservative Supreme Court justices and 4 liberals. With the 5 conservative justices we got, if it went to the Supreme Court, and again, I don't know this, I'm just speculating, okay? I'm speculating. If a case like this went before this Supreme Court, they would probably say, the woman saw the blue light, she heard the siren, she saw the marked car, she saw the uniform, she saw the badge. There was, what she's doing is trying to evade arrest. There's no question that he was not representing the state in a law enforcement capacity with all of the elements in that scene. Now, if you had a more liberal court, they might interpret that in a little different light and say, yeah, but we're talking about what it boils down to here is that you all as law enforcement officers have the power to change the culture, and this is what the whole thing I want to talk to you about. You all as future law enforcement officers have the power to change the culture of the use of force in criminal justice. One encounter at a time. It's up to you all. You all are the folks, and I throw this information out here to challenge you to change the status quo. It doesn't have to be like that guy when he pulls her over and he doesn't give her the, really, all of us. What's the harm in saying, here's my ID, ma'am, now get in the back of the car? Where's the harm in that? Is there harm? It takes an extra minute, it's a pain in the butt, but there really is no harm. Would you all agree or not?
Yes.
And so you have that opportunity. I'm interested to see how the court's going to rule in this. It depends on whether it's a liberal court or a conservative court, and you all need to keep that in mind because that's how policies are going to be made. Every time you go vote, especially for president, you are influencing the Supreme Court. Because this next year, whether or not you all know it or not, we've got 3 justices on the Supreme Court that will probably be replaced in the next 4 years. 2 for sure, maybe 3. And the next president that we elect, whether it be Democrat or Republican, will have the opportunity to appoint 2, maybe 3 Supreme Court justices in the next 4 years. And it will change the way rulings are decided. The court's either going to go really conservative or it's going to swing back and be a liberal court. It's up to who we elect as president to make that decision. Just a sidebar. All right, somebody tell me the ruling. Any other questions before I go on?
I just have one thing I'm curious about. The ID, I've seen a lot of officers they'll give their badge number and name instead of a hard copy of their ID. Is that sufficient?
You don't have to give them the hard copy of the ID. You just have to. I'll tell you, a lot of times, I've seen a lot of departments put a ID on a lanyard, like a breakaway lanyard, or put the ID on the in a little holder, clip holder on the pocket. I've seen them do that so that it's hanging there.
So that's sufficient?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I told you, I think most Supreme Courts, now it's different. If you're in plain clothes and an unmarked car, that poses a little different question. But I don't think this was the case here. I think this is a marked car, uniformed officer, blue light
Yes,
siren, the whole bit. I mean, I think that like I say, plain car, no lights or no visible lights and dress clothes and a tie changes the equation and makes her request a little more legitimate. Okay? But I think her request is a little silly because here he's, you got the marked car, the siren, the lights, the whole bit, and you're in uniform from hat to toe, and she's, well, I want to see an ID. I mean, they just don't sell uniforms to whomever. You can't call Galls and say, yeah, I'd like a deputy uniform. That just don't happen. They won't do it. Galls won't send you a deputy uniform.
That reminds me of the movie SB Cops.
I haven't seen it, but I bet it's good. All right, what did the court say?
Court said that it was excessive force.
That it was excessive force?
Yes.
Okay, now here's one other element that I want to talk to you all about. And here's what I would argue makes it very excessive. And I want you to know this. Your use of force, in and of itself, is a product to do what?
Accomplish the directive.
Say again?
Accomplish the directive.
What's the directive?
At that case, it was to get her in the back of the car.
No, but it happened before then. Your use of force is only to effect an arrest. You with me?
Mhm.
You can't use force to make her get into the back of the car and do all these other things. You use compliance techniques. Your use of force is only to effect the arrest. When did this officer have control of the arrest?
When he put her in handcuffs.
That's it. When you put somebody in handcuffs and you back up and use electricity and pepper and guns, you have used excessive force. You can't do any of that once you get somebody in handcuffs. Because by definition, once you get them in handcuffs, you are in control. That's why I couldn't do anything to that young woman. That's why I wanted to tell you that story. I couldn't do anything to that young woman even though she was stomping my feet because by law, I had her in cuffs and I had her in control. Now she was limber and she was slick and she could stomp my feet. But I had to use pain compliance techniques to try to keep her from stomping my feet and get her in the back of the car. I couldn't continue to use the same type of force that you would use to effect that arrest. Pepper spray, electricity, tasers, guns. Yes?
I agree with that being excessive once you have them in handcuffs, but I can see how someone could argue. It says here that Trooper Boyd stated that he then decided not to physically force her into the car because she was a middle-aged woman weighing 280 pounds.
Yep.
He decided that he wasn't going to use force on her in case she might fall and hurt herself. So I can see how someone might argue that he used the pepper spray. That's a temporary pain versus potentially.
The courts has argued that there is no, we cannot use the term less than lethal anymore. And what happens is they were using the term less than lethal for any force up to deadly force. Well, you can't use less than lethal because I may have told you all, I may not have. I'm allergic to pepper spray now. I've been exposed so much I built up an allergy. If I get pepper sprayed and I don't get one of those EpiPens, I'm gone. So pepper spray can be lethal.
Yeah.
The difference is that pain compliance cannot. For example, y'all remember the high school student that deputy drug out of the chair and drug across the room and used all that excessive force on him? You don't have to do all that. There are pain compliance techniques that work on most people. And I told my last class this, and one of the guys, he sat right back there in the room, he's like, how do you do it? What would you do? If I wanted to make any of you all get up out of your chair, I have a pain compliance technique that I know where I can use these two fingers and I can make you stand up. There won't be no dragging around. There won't be no, resisting. I'll walk over and I'll use these two fingers and I will make contact with you and you will be happy to get up. I mean, you'll jump up. And I won't tell you. Just know that I know how to make it happen. And I don't have to drag you all over the floor to do it. I do not have to do that. I can make you stand up. So that guy doesn't do that. Much like that guy working with that large woman to get her in the back seat of the car, there are pain compliance techniques he could have used to encourage her to sit down in that car, and she would have been happy to sit down in the car to make the pain go away. And then that pain goes away. His argument, what he tried to argue to the court, and it doesn't hold water, is that by using pain compliance, I was afraid I would leave lasting harm, but I felt like the pepper spray would not leave lasting harm. Well, that's not the case. Actually, it's the opposite. His argument didn't hold water. That's why he was found guilty. What's going to leave the lasting harm or has potential to leave lasting harm is the pepper spray, the electricity, all of those things. You with me?
Yeah.
I'm curious, with the girl that you were putting into a vehicle that stomped all over your toes and everything, I understand that you had complete control of the situation once you had the cuffs on her, and that makes you liable for her, responsible for her.
Mhm.
At that point, when she stomps on your feet, is that considered assault to a
Oh,
police
yeah,
officer?
she got extra charges. I loaded her up.
Oh, okay, well, I
Yeah.
didn't know if, since you were in control,
Yeah,
that.
no, you charged her with assault, and I did.
Okay, all right.
I charged her 3, 4 counts of assault and 2, 3 different things. And,
Right before
you know, she's found guilty of all. So that, any questions of Beckley? Comments? When you live them, it's pretty easy. Yeah. I mean, if you're standing around making stuff up, then it kind of gets a little squirrely. But when you've lived through all of this stuff, I just scroll back through the file. I can still see that woman's face. I can tell you more to that story you won't believe. That was only the tip. I only told you the tip of the iceberg.
All right, let's hear it.
No, we ain't got time. We got to move on to something else. I can tell you that story, take up the rest of the night, because my arrest with that woman was just the tip of the iceberg. She lost it. She went into the magistrate's office, and the magistrate said, "What's your name?" And she cussed her out. She said, "My name is beep," with about 15 cuss words. So you know she did not have a good, she was not having a good night. All right, last case. Isom versus Town of Warren, Rhode Island. Somebody tell me about Warren, Rhode Island. Tell me about it. You're the one that had it right.
In March 7th, 1997, a mentally disturbed suicidal man named Isom held 2 employees up in a liquor store with an axe.
Wow.
Nice.
He let both of the employees go. The first responding officer was Sergeant Green, followed by 3 other officers. The main one was Detective Clancy. And Isom was deranged. He was cussing himself, shouting at himself. You know the man is off his rocker.
Right, it's obvious. It's obvious that he's probably in a schizoid episode, right?
And
I think we can probably say that he's probably in some sort of a schizoid episode.
Sergeant Green entered the establishment with his gun not drawn. He faced Isom approximately 10 feet away in the middle aisle, face to face. Isom, after having conversation with Green, eventually blanks out. And then arrives Detective Clancy and 2 other officers, one of which is positioned behind Sergeant Green. Clancy positioned to the left of him. Clancy has gun drawn, as does one of the backup officers. The other officer went around and covered the rear exit. Trying to respond to Isom as he's face down, he's blanked out, he's gone off the reservation. And Detective Clancy reaches for pepper spray off of Sergeant Green's belt. Green gives him the go-ahead. Clancy considers talking to him to put down his weapon, does not respond, sprays him once, as if Clancy's training and effect, as he states, no effect from pepper spray whatsoever. He shrugs it off. Sprays him again, whatsoever, no effect. Isom then charges them. They release fire. Isom is put down, call an ambulance. A few moments later, Isom dies.
All right. So you're dealing with a mental health subject. He is clearly schizoid. He's schizophrenic. He's having a big episode. He's violent, but he passes out during the episode. And while he's passed out, they pepper spray him. What's the question of law?
The question of law was the breach of duty and the over excessive force, and if they qualified for the use of pepper spray.
Right. What does the court say?
No breach of duty. They qualified under the pepper spray, and the policy of pepper spray gives them a wide use of discretion.
Right. So why were they able to pepper spray this individual and it wasn't excessive force? He was still posing a threat. You have somebody face down who's not responding to you, who has not given up their weapon. You don't have a clue whether this guy is trying to sucker you in so that he can get you close enough to hit you with an axe, or if he's truly passed out, right? And obviously, whatever his state was, he came back to, and he became immediate threat to the officers because they shot him. So their use of force was validated. Now, I want to talk to you about one more situation that's been on the news the last couple of days that I find extremely interesting. And then we're going to go on and I'm going to tie this up and we'll get ready to review for the test. How many people have been watching the militants that are holed up in, is it Utah?
Oregon.
Oregon. That's where it is, in Oregon. Yesterday, they caught the leader of that bunch and the spokesman of that bunch apparently away from the compound. They pulled over the vehicle. They arrested the leader without incident. The spokesman had made his brags before that he would die before he would be arrested. They surrounded him, gave him repeated requests to surrender. He squared up, drew his weapon, they shot and killed him. You all seen that? Spokesman
Yeah, but
gone.
there's conflicting reports to that. There's reports that also say that he got out of the vehicle with his hands up and they still shot him.
Yes. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. I want you all to watch
Sure there's a camera somewhere.
because there are particular rules of engagement for the FBI. The FBI's rules of engagement since Ruby Ridge and since Waco are even more stringent than state and national statutes. They have real strict rules of engagement. So I would question whether or not the reports you got would be true. It'll be interesting to see how all this comes out, when it all comes out, what the truth of that matter is, because I know that the FBI has really, really ratcheted down on their rules of engagement with folks in these militant type groups because they don't like the bad publicity they get that comes from killing those folks. I do know this morning I was told that they have now cleared out the building in which the militants were in. All of the militants have either been dispersed or arrested. Those folks, that little standoff, I think, is just about over.
Why were they after them?
Say again?
Why were they after them? They had done illegal?
They, the whole situation started with two ranchers set a forest fire that burnt government land. And they did it to cover up illegal hunting. They were running a guide service and they were killing illegal elk, something. And the investigators were on that federal land looking at those carcasses and the things that had been done, trying to gather evidence against them. So in order to try to destroy that evidence, they set a wildfire that burnt several thousand acres of government land. They went to court. They were found guilty of the arson plus the illegal hunting. They were sentenced to so many months in federal prison.
3 years.
Well, okay, 3 years in federal prison. Because of that, Mr. Bundy and his group came from wherever it was they came from to support them, and they took over a Federal Bureau of Land Management office. There.
That's not the whole story. Those
Okay.
guys served their 3 years in prison, got out, and the federal government said they had to go back for 2 years.
Okay.
That's why they done that.
Right. So the law that this group broke is that they took over a Federal Bureau of Land Management, which is an office that manages public land out there. They took over that office. They didn't hold anybody hostage. They just took it over. They refused to let them use it. They were using it as their headquarters, and they were demanding that the federal government back off of these two ranchers.
Okay. I get it.
Apparently, from what I can gather from the interviews out there, and you interview the public, there is a huge mistrust of the federal government by the citizenry in the western states like Oregon, Utah,
Iowa, Texas.
some of those. You have a huge distrust of the federal government. They're not fans of the federal government at all. All right. So in conclusion, here's how I wanted to wrap this up, and then we're going to review for the test for Tuesday. I know I misspoke and told you all we was going to have it Thursday, and I apologize. You all can't take a test as we finish up the material. In conclusion, the culture of the police department is the primary factor that affects the use of force. things I've tried to demonstrate through all of the cases we've talked about, through all of the people we've talked about, you know, Rahm Emanuel and these different folks, the culture that's established in that police department affects the use of force in that police department. If the culture in that police department is that use of force is business as usual, what happens when you have a lot of use of force?
Then there's gonna be excessive force used at some point.
Well, at some point, but a lot of use of force is considered business as usual, then no heads are turned, right?
Comes happen.
No questions are ever asked. What we want to know and understand is that use of force should be a unusual event in a department. And that comes from creating that culture. Your police chiefs, your sheriffs, your mayors should create an environment where the use of force by a police department is an abnormality, not business as usual. Make sense? And that's how you begin to change the culture of using force. Because one of the common threads in almost all of these court cases that we've looked at is that at some point, the police could have done something different or better to have changed the outcome. None was more obvious than the guy who sprayed the woman with pepper spray after she was in handcuffs. He had several different options. The option he chose was maybe the worst one. But he chose that one because his department said use of force is business as usual. Not use of force is an abnormality. Make sense? To create this change in culture, the police must. I've got about 7 things listed for you. The police must create a positive philosophy of policing. The police must create a positive philosophy of policing. And they do that by stating clearly what the police department believes in. Stating it clearly.
The second one?
Can be, or you can make it B under that one. They're related. A police department must be able to articulate the goals of that department. And those goals, this is another one of those A under that one. Those goals have to reflect community expectations. Those goals have to reflect community expectations. Here's a big one. Police leaders must provide operational strategies. Police chiefs, police sheriffs, police lieutenants must provide line staff with operational strategies. Operational strategies. Police departments need to build a framework for evaluating use of force. Now there's A, B, and C under this one, okay? A, B, and C under this one. A framework for evaluating use of force. framework should be swift. It should be transparent. And here's the most effective piece. It should be overseen by the public. It should be swift, it should be transparent, and it should be overseen by the public. That doesn't mean administered by the public, that means overseen. Make sense? Now, police need to build a bridge between police and community. This is another one. This is a whole separate issue right here, and there's about 4 under this one. 4 or 5. Police need to build a bridge into the community. That bridge begins with diversity. Begins with diversity. The second piece of that bridge is political. I would argue, and statistics will tell you, use of force goes down when you have an adequate number of staff to take care of the challenges your department faces. So we need to add police officers. We need to add police officers to every department. Statistics tell us that when our police officers have adequate backup and they are answering a reasonable number of calls in a shift, our use of force goes down. So we need to add police officers. Become involved in community events, community crime watch, Crime Stoppers, because that's twofold. First of all, it begins to build a rapport. Second of all, with that, you begin to educate your public, right? I've lost count. I didn't number mine. I just wrote mine down. I'm rolling along.
That's one of itself, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's like totally new. Oh, okay. Sorry.
However you want to take the notes, as long as you got them, I'm all right with you. Now, the next one under building that bridge would be improved training. And here's the last one, and I've been a part of many of these, and I like them. I think it's the most effective tool a department can use. I want you all to be aware of that as you go forward into your law enforcement career. Be prepared to use these, and if your department don't use them, you introduce the idea to them. They are an extremely effective tool. The military uses them. Those of you who have military backgrounds, you all may call them something different, but they use them all the time. They're called after-action committees. Basically what happens is you take and form a committee, you have an event, a use of force, a shooting, whatever it is, you have this event, and you put together a committee. And that committee has line staff, it has supervisors, and it has people from the public on that committee. And you look at that event in a logistical way. You don't critique the officer to see how much trouble you can get him in. You look at that event from a logistical standpoint. What can our department do better? How can we change our training standards? How can we change our strategic goals and strategic plan that we put forth to our employees, right? Make all of those changes from an after-action committee. And finally, you don't need to write this down. I just want you to know it because this is one of the ways that I know that it works. In 2006, the sheriff of Prince George County, Maryland, which is one of the most populated areas around, unless you want to go someplace like New York or somewhere. But per capita, Prince George County, Maryland has a ton of people. It's right outside of D.C. They interviewed him about his use of force policies and the things he did, and he said he did 3 things. He gave clear expectations, he taught communication skills, and he had his line staff supervised closely. His tickets and arrests for the year 2006 went up 66%. His complaints on force actually went down 25%. So it can work. Communication can work. Questions about what I've thrown out at you? You got a question? Can I answer anything? Anybody?
I have a question.
All right, shoot.
And I was actually wondering this when I reviewed this case, Ison. In that case, they kept saying that the female cashiers that were inside were hostages. They said it over and over in the report. But at the same time, they made he wasn't holding them there against his free will. He just walked in with an axe and sat down and started talking to them.
That meets the definition of hostage.
Really? Well,
Yes.
what exactly is the definition then? 'Cause
Anytime somebody walks in and restricts your freedom to leave, even for the briefest of moments. It doesn't have, you don't have to, there's not a time limit on a hostage. I don't have to keep you for 5 minutes before you're a hostage.
So if you walked in somewhere with a gun and said, "Get the hell out."
They've been taken hostage till you told them to get out.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
Yes, that meets the definition of hostage. I had a guy once upon a time that came into prison. He robbed a convenience store, and they charged him with taking a hostage. And what happened was, when he walked into the convenience store, there was a guy standing in line behind him. He pulled the gun and turned to that guy and said, "Lay down." And the guy laid down, and he said they charged him and found him guilty of taking a hostage because he only did his.
But not every armed robber gets hit with hostage.
Not every armed robber gets hit with
So is
hostage.
that kind of a discretionary thing? I mean.
It's really up to the prosecutor and what he thinks he can prove.
Okay.
Yeah, you do the report and you make the arrest, and then the prosecutor, if they think they can get a hostage charge out of it, they will. And they may charge, I've seen a lot of these guys make the hostage charge and then negotiate it out to get a plea. Charge him with armed robbery, possession of a firearm, during commission of a felony, hostage, and did 2 or 3 other things and say, all right, look, here's what I'll do. I'll throw the hostage out, and I'll throw the possession of a firearm, commission of a felony out, and you plead guilty to armed robbery and whatever else. And the guy will say, and we'll give you however many years. The guy's like, yeah, I'll take that, because if you convict me of all this stuff, I'm going for life.
So it can be used as a plea bargaining tool.
Everything can be used as a plea bargaining tool. This depends. Yeah, but I mean, I've seen that happen a lot. Very possible. Any other questions before we get started? All right, let's review. A use of force continuum provides what? Right, it provides law enforcement guidelines to how much force may be used. How many levels of the old-timey training of use of force did I give you all? 5. What's the first one?
Physical presence,
Physical presence. What's the last one?
verbal command,
No, the last one.
the last one's deadly.
Deadly.
Deadly force. It starts with physical presence and ends with deadly force. Know them. The new method of training trains to what constitutional amendment? The Graham type training, Graham scale training. What does it train to? It trains to what amendment? What constitutional amendment does it train to?
4th.
Fourth. Remember, I told you the 14th only applies to what kind of stops?
Terry stuff.
Terry stops. This is 4th Amendment. Use of force is 4th Amendment. Be sure you know the difference. Graham versus Connor was a court case that decided use of force or Terry stops.
Use of force.
Use of force, good. And under the Graham rule, you do not have to use lesser force before you use lethal force. True or false?
True.
It's true. You do not have to use lesser force before you use lethal force under the Graham scale. Right. The court must look at the officer's action through the, what kind of lens? The police officer's lens. The same thing they saw. Some of the things that should be considered, along with officer perception, are things like severity of the crime, level of resistance, the reasonableness of possibility of escalation. All of that true?
Yes,
Absolutely,
yes.
know it. Rahm Emanuel is the mayor of what city? Chicago. Sandra Bland got killed in what state?
North Carolina.
Sandra Bland? She was in Texas. She was in Texas. Tennessee versus Garner says that you may not or may shoot a fleeing felon who does not present a threat. May not.
Gardner versus Tennessee.
Some of the consequences of excessive force might be suspension, termination, civil suit, criminal suit. Any of that true or false?
True.
All of it's true. Good. Know all of those opportunities. Today's notes. To create a positive police environment, police chiefs and sheriffs need to create a positive what? Philosophy. They also need to provide operational strategies. Establishing a framework for departmental use of force complaints should encompass what?
Swift,
Should be swift, that's right.
transparent,
Transparent
overseen by the public.
and overseen by the public. Great. Police and community bridge building. It should consist of community involvement, and in that community involvement, what are we going to do with the public?
Educate.
Educate. The word I'm looking for is educate. One of the things that the Prince George County, Maryland sheriff said that he taught that improved his use of force complaints, made them go down, was
Communication.
communication. Great. Communication. I think that's about everything. Y'all seem like you know it. So give me some feedback. How's the last couple of weeks been? Have you liked it, not liked it? Has it been different? What?
Like the bombs, it's all good. Just busting. I'll take you by the improv.
Are there any questions, Beckley?
Test's gonna be multiple choice.
Multiple choice, true, false, and I'll probably give you a bonus question that's essay.
Alrighty.
All right. Be ready. See you Tuesday.
Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend. Be safe. Yes. Turn in your homework as you go out.
Mr. Rasnick,
Yo.
you received mine and Julia's homework the other day.
I did.
Okay.
Okay. I haven't looked at my email. When I did.
Like I said yesterday, just.
Okay. If I didn't get it, I'll shoot you an email back.
And about the board
That's good.
Didn't write anything on the third one.
meeting, the 26th.
I'm gonna
Go back and do it.
Nah, we're good.
Okay.
And that in our discussion.
You have to go ask Hope if it's emailed back or.
Well, that's what
Thank you, sir.
Mine in Tuesday. You wanna eat?
All right.
I know I wasn't.
I'll call
Well, they are trained, and without going back and
Yeah, I didn't know there was one.
really, really tight,
Well, it didn't used to be. It didn't used to be.
I know, I talked to her.
I agree, I think 23 shots is.
Does the 4 round training is, yeah, does the training need to be better?
Here, I have seen this before, the training of the Department of Public could always be better as far as marksmanship goes. But here's what I see, I've seen this before in case review. When you deal with somebody who is either
I tested it
schizo
out myself.
or drug-induced, like City Angel dust,
They have
superhuman strength.
Yeah.
And I have seen issues, and then, you know, I have seen issues where they have lived several minutes past what a normal person could live taking the same abuse. And I would say that if you have 3 officers there, and the officers, all 3 are shooting at one time, you probably got,
bullets apiece.
yeah, you've probably got
Extras
7 or 8 rounds apiece shot in the realm of about, say, 7 to 10 seconds. And so you have, well, and there was actually 4 officers. There was one behind. So now you've only got about 4 to 5 rounds apiece.
5 rounds by
In-
4 different.
Right, in about 7 seconds. And I would argue that, and again, I'd have to look at the autopsy report, but here's the next piece I would argue. Based on statistics,
That's the best way to do
the
it.
first shot the police officer fires is 98% accurate.
That's the number.
His second shot is about 50-50. His third shot is 2%. He goes from 98 to 2 in 3
Yes,
shots.
but this man was hit 23.
Well, but they don't tell you where. It may have been in a hand, it may have been the arm, it may have been the leg, it could have been
23
anywhere.
times. My
Right.
gosh.
Well,
Soon that hand's gonna come off.
right, but, and I don't argue that you're not right. I mean, I think there needs to be if I were the sheriff, chief, whatever, there'd be a hard look at that. But I can see where it happens. 4 officers, 4 to 5 rounds apiece, 7 to 8 seconds. I can see where that happens. I can see it happens. If you've got 2 officers or 1 officer and there's 23 bullet
One
wounds
officer,
and reload.
get another clip.
Right.
And
But with 4 officers, all 4 officers firing, and that person managing to stay on his feet for 10 to 15 seconds. Now, you and I, after the first bullet hit us, we're going back. But I can see where this person probably stayed on his feet 7 to 10 seconds and took that many rounds. I can see it. Now, does that mean, absolutely, and I don't argue that, I don't argue that. Should there have been a review there? Absolutely. Does it necessarily make for criminal, meet the definition of excessive force criminally? Maybe not. We just have to get into it and look at
We'd
it.
have to look deeper.
Right, right. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
What do you think about class? You like it so far?
I like class, but my only issue is I usually have a different outlook of police than like what say you do. I
Absolutely.
usually look at the bad instead of the good, so, but it's nice to hear, the good side coming. I'm a paralegal for a defense attorney. I have been for 6 years, so I always see more of the
Well,
bad than
and the thing that I'm trying to do, and the thing that I try to push as you move forward, as you go into law enforcement, is that we can, I've already run my race, I'm here teaching, but you all, as people going into the criminal justice field, you can change the culture of police work one encounter at a time. And it's up to you to have that integrity and to do that, and that's what I try to teach in here. You know, one of the things I push all the time, and I tried to push it today, and I pushed it in my night class last night, and I'll push it all the time, is police work's about integrity. And it's about personal integrity.
Yeah.
And it's about changing police work one encounter at a time, and not being bogged down by those around you who don't do it the right way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because there are plenty out there who are not gonna do it the right way.
Oh, no, I think just the power that a police officer has, it just,
it kinda automatically pushes you towards abusing the power. I mean,
Yeah, so
there's
that's,
just,
that was what I'm taking.
yes.
The allure of misbehaving becomes, pretty, strong.
Yes.
To those who are.
I mean, it even goes back to the bootlegging days with the grass eaters and the meat eaters. That was prominent back then.
But it's, you know.
On my homework, on email, there's